Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2010 black comedy superhero film titled Kick-Ass. Now, Kick-Ass runs for 1 hour and 57 minutes long. It is directed by Matthew Vaughn. It is produced by Matthew Vaughn, Brad Pitt, Chris Dykier, Adam Bowling, Tarquin Pack, and David Reed. I mean, originally Brad Pitt was supposed to be one of the stars in the movie, but I guess he kind of bailed out. But he did actually took it upon himself to arbitrarily take up a production position in this movie instead. Anyhow, the script was written by Jane Goldman and Matthew Vaughn. It is based off of the graphic comic series Kick-Ass by Mark Millar and John Romita Jr. The score was composed by John Murphy, Henry Jackman, Marius DeVries, and Ilan Eshkeri. The cinematography by Ben Davis, and it was edited by Pietro Scalia, John Harris, and Eddie Hamilton. And the stars of the movie are Aaron Taylor Johnson, Chloe Grace Moretz, Nicolas Cage, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Mark Strong, Lyndsey Fonseca, Clarke Duke, and Evan Peters. In spite of its name, Kick-Ass itself really does truly live up to the name of its title and beyond. I mean, when I watched this movie, I was like, wow. This is amazing. You may probably think this is actually... It almost looks as though as if it looks like a light-hearted, saccharine, kid-friendly, kiddie superhero movie. I mean, sure, the backgrounds and the effects tend to be kind of almost like it. And the stars of the movie are relatively young individuals, like Aaron Taylor Johnson, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and Chloe Grace-Moretz, with a few veteran performers like Nicolas Cage and Mark Strong to also take you in on the ride. But to be honest with you, this movie is anything but a kid's movie, and for plenty of great reasons too. Because the movie is very, very excessive in its violence. I know it could be almost played off for satire like in all the other superhero-themed movies, but to be honest with you, the movie seems to have a much more darker vibe to it. It definitely has a lot of heavy swearing, especially from a character who you would least expect to be the one to do a lot of swearing. This character practically swears like a sailor, and you would be just so damn surprised that these cuss words was coming from this particular individual, which I will get. It's definitely a blend of dark comedy with a myriad of violent action that might shock you with its violence and vulgarity, while at the same time it will have you laughing on the floor. But in the end, you will applaud this movie simply because it's original in its delivery and its colorful attempts as a vigilante crime-fighting film. This movie kind of like has a take of the superhero vigilante stuff without, like, it's not necessarily part of either the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the DC Cinematic Universe. No, this one actually kind of like falls on its own. But it does definitely pay its homage. There is a lot of aforemention of Marvel characters like Spider-Man, Captain America, and a few other ones that are also to mention. And even sometimes the superhero characters themselves seem to also pay some homage towards other superhero-themed vigilantes. I mean, when you look at Big Daddy, Nicolas Cage's character, obviously his costume, his superhero costume, definitely does pay homage to almost like 60s Adam West Batman. So what really makes this movie so great is that it's not saccharine, it's not sweet campy stuff. You won't expect to see any like like onomatopoeias, like the crash, the booms, the kabams, like you would see like in the '60s Adam West themed Batmans, or even or if you remember back in the '60s, you know, with the Green Hornet. If you grew up in the '60s, you may have remembered the Green Hornet, which was the TV series actually that launched Bruce Lee's acting career on American soil. It also, featured the late great legendary Van Williams as the titular character, the Green Hornet. It, you probably will see the punches and the and the fight scenes without the use of the with the in-your-face onomatopoeias. This movie is not saccharine, it's not watered down, and never once does it insult the viewer's intelligence. When you see a character in pain, when you see a character in a vulnerable disposition, you're gonna feel the impact. I guarantee you. People will get hurt. People will fall to their deaths. And it's not like one of those, once they get up, they come back again in the next scene almost virtually unscratched. Even Kick-Ass himself also takes a few bumps and bruises himself. And yes, characters die too in this movie. Lots of death. It's not like massive body count, but there is still a lot of of killings in this movie. Mostly from the antagonists, but still, even some protagonists too also don't make it out alive. The movie tackles many genres going for it. On one basis, it's an action hero superhero film, based mixed in with some teen comedy, which you would probably expect to see in high school dramas a bit, because there is a little bit of a scene where some guy who's has aspirations of becoming a superhero, but is also attracted to a beautiful high school girl, but she won't give him the time of day. But then, once she becomes interested in him, she takes him and accepts him, but for the pretty obvious wrong reasons. Not that there's anything wrong with what she thinks of him as, but because he's not who she thinks he is, he's not who she thinks he is. Yeah, it's a bit confusing, but there is still, because of the fact that our leading protagonist is a high school student, almost similar to like Peter Parker or Miles Morales. These guys are high school students wearing superhero costumes, fighting crime. That's who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man is a teenager in a superhero costume, slinging on buildings with his web slinger and fighting crime. Same could be said here for our leading protagonist, but he also features the trials and tribulations of being an adolescent, trying to be noticed, trying to get the girl of his dreams, but the girl of his dreams is attracted to him, even though she thinks that he's, gay, even though in reality is he's not, but he's trying to, like, pretend he's gay only just so that she could be interested in him, which I think is morally wrong. And like I said, not anything wrong with being gay, but what's wrong is he's being dishonest. But eventually he does come out and admits that I am Kick-Ass and I am also not gay. Now, in the graphic novels, of course, if you read, she eventually gets, obviously pissed off because he was lying to her, and then he gets the shit beaten out of him by her actual boyfriend. But you don't get that in this movie. In fact, unlike the graphic novel, where a lot of the characters seem to come across as being lacking in sympathy, this movie does actually have the characters kind of more fleshed out to be more sympathetic than it was in the movie. I mean, Big Daddy in the comics actually comes across as being just a deranged psycho. But in the movie Kick-Ass, Big Daddy is actually a far more sympathetic, much more understanding individual as to why he took on the life of being a superhero vigilante. In addition to that, if you watch the films of Quentin Tarantino, you might notice that the violent action in his movies seem to be brutal, while at the same time has a certain level of cartoon-like violence in similar veins like Kill Bill, which adds to the dark humor that is frequently exhibited in the movie Kick-Ass. The movie does have kind of a bit of the Tarantino vibe in the cartoon-like violence in this, just like you're in Kick-Ass. In all this, in all this movie takes great lengths to experiment by taking numerous genres and blending them together to create a nifty way we see superhero films without it falling under the brink of being political or even preachy. I'm just glad there was no political statements or anything to be, preachy. And you get that, and that's one of the big weaknesses in a superhero film. Nobody wants to go in and be preached at by filmmakers. No, we want to see characters go out there in the struggle between good and evil, try to take down bad guys so that justice and peace could be served within the premises of their stomping grounds. That's what a purpose of a superhero movie is. It's not about you guys getting all political or getting all woke or even just preaching to us what they think is right and what is wrong, and to let us draw our own conclusions and not just practically force us to like something and just rub it in our faces. That's a turnoff from a lot of viewers. 3 years later, Kick-Ass was eventually made into a sequel. I don't think it kind of lived up to the expectations of the original Kick-Ass, which is why you never saw a third part. But you never know. I think there is possibilities that they're going to probably launch some spin-offs. I think I heard something that they might even turn it into a TV series. And I also think the character Hit Girl is going to be making sort of her own spin-off movie. Uh, that should be something that we would like to see. I don't know if Chloe Grace-Moretz is going to either reprise the role or she'll be replaced by another actress, maybe roughly around her age. We don't know, but it's something to see. I mean, hey, Watchmen was eventually launched into a TV series with a whole different cast of characters and performers. Kick-Ass, I think, might be made into a TV series as well, with different actors and actresses. It's going to be kind of a reboot. But we'll have to see whether it will live up to any expectations or whether it will be an utter and complete failure. We will have to soon wait and find out. I know it did have a sequel in 2013. So the story centers around high school adolescent kid named Dave Liszewski, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. And he's an average kid who seems to be into comic books so much that instead of having hopes of becoming a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or a traffic cop or A newspaper columnist? No, I didn't think so either. He wants to become a crime-fighting vigilante, even though he doesn't have the fighting skills or the gadgets that other superheroes have, like Batman or Spider-Man. If you're thinking that it's one of those kid comedy films about a boy pursuing his dream, well, you have another thing coming. Once he gets into a cheaply looking jumpsuit and becomes his own superhero crime fighter, this defenseless outcast transforms into a mean, lean, fighting machine wearing a cheaply done suit of green. That should go into my book of poetry. You just gotta love that poetry that I said there. Yes. He becomes kick-ass. I mean, his first mission was to take down a couple of carjackers. But instead of, like going out and fighting, well, he does go out and he does fight. But in the end, he also gets his ass whooped. But being determined and resilient that he is, he eventually does somehow, by fluke or default, somehow take down these carjackers. And then all of a sudden he just becomes an internet sensation. And becomes kind of almost like a superhero for the modern fans. Now, under the direction of Matthew Vaughn in his third film, the previous ones have been Layer Cake and Stardust. Once our hero gets into the suit and starts fighting crime, he starts to get immediate fame and eventually becomes an internet sensation, especially on the MySpace account. Yes, this movie is that old. Back in 2010, long before Facebook launched, MySpace was the social network epicenter. Now, practically, MySpace has become a figment of the past. And even some people are even saying that Facebook, too, is also becoming more of an epicenter for middle-aged adults, because people are seem to turning away from that and seem to be moving over to like places like Instagram and TikTok. But yes, back the older millennials used to get into MySpace. Of course, his exposure to more crime within the city led to the crime lord Frank D'Amico, played by Mark Strong, and his band of goons. This leads to another strange duo of crime-fighting vigilantes, a father-daughter duo. Why did I say son? Father-daughter duo of Big Daddy, played by Nicolas Cage, and his daughter partner, simply known as Hit Girl, played by Chloe Grace-Moretz. Now, it's not to say that Nicolas Cage is a stranger to the superhero genre. Cage, he's a veteran performer who has been in numerous action films over the years, and is also was a superhero, like if you ever seen, of course, Ghost Rider. He just seems at his best when he's trying out new genres of movies. Even though this is a guy who can brag that he's been in the movie industry for almost 40 years. He's practically brought up in the movie industry because, his last name is actually Coppola. And yes, he is the nephew of legendary screen director Francis Ford Coppola. But the reason why he keeps the name Cage is because, he wants to branch a name for himself and does not want to take the Coppola name as an advantage towards his legacy. He wants to build his own legacy. That's why he took the moniker Cage. And the Cage, of course, derives from one of the very first, earliest African American superheroes. I'm talking about Luke Cage. So that's why he goes by that name. Anyhow, in this movie, he just definitely seems right at home, playing a role that matches the usual characters he's known it for, being intense while also possessing his own brand of humor, which has made him an audience favorite dating back to 1982. I think one of his earliest roles was Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but he really has become, you know, a great actor over the years. Everyone appreciates him. And he has, like I said, been in the superhero genre before with Ghost Rider. So he just feels quite naturally at home. I love the Big Daddy costume. It definitely is a great homage to Batman, especially the costume that he wears. Um, we get a little bit of a backstory as to why he decided to become a superhero vigilante. Apparently, the story was that Big Daddy was on the hunt looking for the leading mob boss within the area, Frank D'Amico. But, he was eventually laid off because of Frank D'Amico, so that's why Cage decided, that's why Big Daddy, I believe his last name was McCready. I forget his first name. I do know the last name was McCready. He lost his police officer position, so now he has decided to take matters in his own hands. Since the cops are corrupt, people just don't seem to want to bring down D'Amico. So he takes it upon himself to become a crime-fighting vigilante. He also has the assistance of his daughter, Hit Girl. And, Hit Girl might be small and diminutive, but don't let her small size fool you. She is lethal. From the opening scenes when we're introduced to Big Daddy and Hit Girl, they are off costume. Big Daddy grabs a gun and he shoots his daughter. But does his daughter die? Hell no. Apparently, underneath her clothing, she was wearing a bulletproof vest. And her birthday was coming up, and at first he was like saying, "Oh, what would you like?" And she would be like, "Oh, I like a puppy." You're shitting me, aren't you? Fuck no! I want something more lethal. I forget exactly what it was, because I don't always remember what everybody says. But obviously, Hit Girl might be a small little lady, but she's very well trained in terms of fighting skills. She's also good at handling weapons, and she could practically outsmart anybody that crosses her path. She's lethal, she's dangerous, and she also swears a lot too. For a 9-year-old girl swearing like that, it's like, holy shit. The way she's talking, if I talk like that, if I was 9 years old and I talk like that, I'd probably be grounded till I'm 30. Or I would have to take all my Eastern Door money and give it to mom and dad for every time I dropped any cute little 4-letter word, whether it be an F-bomb or an S-bomb or any other scatological words that represent vulgarity. Might as well go Boo Radley from To Kill a Mockingbird on me. Lock me in my room and bar the windows. No, because it's just hard to believe that a 9-year-old girl would be so lethal, albeit swearing a lot. In fact, most of the shock value in this movie comes from Chloe Grace Moritz's role as Hit Girl. She might swear like a soldier, but she's also very well skilled. She seems to come across as being, a very precocious little girl. She's actually quite smart, and she's also very lethal and dangerous. And sure, she probably may look cute with the little cat burglar mask and the purple wig. But don't let this cute little girl. But just don't think twice about pinching her cheeks because she'll practically bite your whole finger off. Maybe not in a physical sense, but a metaphoric sense. You want to come here and pinch your cheeks? She'll break your finger. That's just how lethal she is. You don't want to mess with her, and you don't want to piss her off. She's very well trained by her father. And Nicolas Cage, like I said, is excellent in his performance as both a loving father to his daughter, but once he dons his Big Daddy costume, he has similar vibes to the campy Adam West version of the 1960s Batman series. The violence in this movie will truly blow you away. But you'll be surprised that the violence just doesn't come from our titled hero or from Big Daddy. But like I mentioned before, pint-sized 11-year-old Hit Girl, she is a walking, talking bundle of fear. Don't let her small size fool you. She is dangerous as they come. Plus, she has an attitude to boot. I know this was meant for shock, but, I give credit for originality. I mean, it's like, how did they actually make this girl swear so much? But she provides perhaps the most entertainment in this movie. And I think if it wasn't for Hit Girl, this movie could have been just another bland, poor attempts of some superhero wannabe story. But at least it didn't fall into that category. In the film, there was a scene where she had killed at least over 50 men, twice her size, and she executes her malice with unorthodox methods that lack nuance but still very intriguing. To add to the violence, the soundtrack really cranks up some rightful tunes that fit the fight scenes to absolute near perfection. And though I definitely gave praise from Matthew Vaughn and co-writer Jane Goldman for writing the script based off of Mark Millar's comic book series, I have to also give credit to these two writers. They did a formidable job at keeping the issues of reality in place, keeping in mind that underneath these colorful, over-the-top costumes, they're actually human underneath. That they're not just caricatures. And then there was this weird relationship between Dave and his love interest who thinks he's gay. I really didn't really care too much about the side story, but at least it actually goes to show you that, underneath their costumes, they still have to go to the routines of lifestyle for them. Get up, eat breakfast, go to school, face the date, yada, yada, yada. Just like everyone else. They shouldn't be given any special privileges just because they're superheroes by night, but through the regular days, they still have to live the lives that we humans have to comply to. Another strange relationship was the friendship between Dave and the slick mobster's nerdy son, Chris. His name, played by Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who is a superhero who goes by the alter ego Red Mist. Christopher Mintz-Plasse, he graced the screen a few years ago as somebody by the name of McGovern in Superbad. He seems definitely right for the part as he combines a quirky but kind of whimsical goofiness with some miscalculated self-satisfaction. I wish there would have been a little bit more about Red Mist, but at least it's good to see some origin story that, he is D'Amico's son. Obviously, we don't know for sure if he's going to be sort of like a protagonist or an antagonist or a somewhere in betweener, like a frenemy, part friend, part enemy, or one of those keep your friends close but your enemies closer type of character. I wish there was a little more development in him, but I guess you'll probably see that in the sequel. But at least, you get a little bit of an origin story of Red Mist. I just wish he was a little bit more developed, but he was still very interesting nonetheless. He seems to combine a kind of whimsical goofiness with some miscalculated self-satisfaction. There definitely is no question that this film is extreme to the max, and we can stomach the absurdity and violence that each character, both good and bad, take great pride in themselves. Sure, we all that in ourselves too. The only thing is that the world goes beyond extraordinary than the mundane lives we inherit. Would I definitely recommend this movie? I gotta say that this is easily probably one of the best movies I have ever seen. And I really, really gotta say I enjoyed this movie immensely. I liked how the characters went. They had a good story. There was a good backstory, well-developed characters, brilliant script, great adaptation to the graphic novels from Frank Miller. The direction was spot on. The score was excellent. I gotta admit, the editing was very, very well thought of. There was no shaky cam. It didn't dumb us down. It had a lot of great background stuff to it that really, really, really totally fleshed out very, very well. I highly recommend people to see this movie. It is really, really a truly original movie. It may have been low budget, but you know what? Sometimes, high budget movies can also turn out to be total and utter crap. This movie may have not necessarily been high budget, but it definitely had a lot to like about this movie. And so for that, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would definitely give Kick-Ass an ass-kicking 10 out of 10. I don't give 10 out of 10s that often, but this one truly was something that had me entertained throughout in terms of humor, in terms of human drama, in terms of coming of age, in terms of superhero stuff, action, violence, and a lot of great comical effects towards this movie. It brought Mark Millar's it frankly brought Mark Millar's story to life. Thanks to Matthew Vaughn and Jane Goldman for having a provocative script. And I also liked some of the changes from the graphic novel to the screen to get a much more balance of likable characters, more reasons to like about them than compared to in the graphic novel. And I guess that's pretty much all I gotta say about this movie. You should check it out. And we'll end our session from here. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules: be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Carrot Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.